Good evening and welcome to Cork City Hall and in particular to the Lord Mayor's Chamber. Councillor Joe Callahan here. You probably don't recognise me behind the disguise of this mask, but we're living in very strange and difficult times, and hence this is why we have our virtual tour of the Lord Mayor's Chamber, and we're going to bring you around as best we can the historical artefacts and significance of the many interesting artefacts we have within the Lord Mayor's Chamber and adjoining rooms. I'm delighted to be joined here this evening by my esteemed friend and colleague, Jim Corr, former Lord Mayor, not once but twice. He did it so well, we brought him in a second time. So delighted to be joined by Jim and also by Dan Breen, the curator of the Public Museum, Cork Museum in Fitzgerald's Park. I'm delighted to be here with Dan, and he's a fountain of knowledge from a historical perspective, so we're thrilled to have him here this evening to update us on the various historical significance of the many interesting artefacts here in the chamber. I'm going to start off this evening. On my right-hand side behind me, we have the JFK corner, John F. Kennedy corner. In June 1963, John F. Kennedy visited Cork and was afforded the privilege of Freeman of Cork, and we're absolutely proud of that, to have such a significant figure in the world of politics visiting our wonderful city. There's a beautiful bust which was presented by his sister Jean Kennedy Smith to the then Lord Mayor in 1993 to mark 30 years of his visit to the then Lord Mayor, who is our current Taoiseach, Mccarten. Underneath the Lord Mayor's portrait you have the hat which for the throwing of the dart ceremony, which the Lord Mayor wears, and that ceremony dates back to, I think, 1759, Dan, if I'm correct in saying that. And probably the records go back to 1759, but it did probably happen before that. It signifies the authority of Cork over all lands and waters from the mouth of the harbour right into the boundaries of the city. Down here below it, in this beautiful cabinet, we have a model presented to Cork City Council of the Sirius steamship. The Sirius steamship has historical significance, but its primary, I suppose, focus would be the fact that it's the first steamship to sail the Atlantic under the power of steam to America. As we move around the office and we sweep around, there's a framed cheque which was presented by Terence McSweeney to the Tomas Mccarten Memorial Fund in 1920 on the death of Tomas Mccarten of 125 punt. At that time, that was a hell of a lot of money. And that was presented back to Cork City Council in 1999 by the Allied Irish Bank, and it's now framed and sits proudly in the Lord Mayor's office. As we move further along, we have the charter on the wall, which was presented by Queen Victoria in 1900, which afforded the title and bestowed the title of Lord Mayor to 3 cities in Ireland: Belfast, Dublin, and our great city of Cork. And right in the very corner, we have a photograph of Donal Óg O'Callahan. Donal Óg O'Callahan was the 3rd Lord Mayor in Cork City in 1920, elected in November 1920. And he was known as the Forgotten Lord Mayor because his predecessors, Tomas Mccarten and Terence McSweeney, obviously would be far better known. He spent much of his time on the run, but we do remember him fondly in our office here in the Lord Mayor's Chamber. Obviously, portraits of Tomas Mccarten and Terence McSweeney behind me here, with the cabinet of historical artefacts behind me. On the carpet, you can see the crest of Cork and its logo, Stadio Bene Fide Carinus, which means a safe harbour for all ships. A very historical crest, and it's used right across our city and county as our crest. And it's very, very important to us. I will now refer to my colleague, Jim Corr, for the historical significance of the building we stand in, which was reopened in 1936 by Eamon de Valera, after it was burnt down in 1920.
That's right indeed, Lord Mayor. This building has been in operation for 64 years, and the economic, the social and the cultural life of this city has emanated from this building. And throughout those 64 years, Cork City Council has been very, very busy in building roads, houses, drainage schemes, putting in a drainage scheme, for example, and providing a treatment plant, and doing all these things which were so necessary to the life of our city. So I think that this has truly been a historic building where political divisions have been cast aside and people have worked together to promote the welfare of our city and its people.
Thank you, Jim. And can I ask my colleague Dan Breen to outline some of the historical significance of the many artefacts we have in our cabinet here in the Lord Mayor's chamber. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. With regard to the office of Lord Mayor, one of the pleasant effects, or I would say offshoots of being Lord Mayor, is that the city is often presented with very nice artefacts or mementos to mark particular historical events. The two objects that probably dominate the case are the two maces, which are still fundamentally very important to the city in all its civic and political duties, especially the annual election of Lord Mayors, and as well as the St. Patrick's Day Parade and other civic events. These particular maces date back to the 17th century, but they underwent some repair in the early 18th century. Another prominent piece that draws my attention would be the Freedom of the City casket that was presented to John Birmingham, I believe in 1997. John is fondly remembered in this city for the amount of work he did on behalf of many marginalised and disadvantaged people, but probably most well known for the foundation of COPE, and which is still going strong to this day and has provided an amount of solace, help and support to a vast amount of families in the city. And it's because of that work that the City Council and the City Hall would remember notable citizens such as John. The final thing that I'd like to draw the attention to would be the key that was presented to Eamon de Valera on the opening of City Hall in 1936. Between 1920 and 1936, the city was without its own City Hall. A lot of the municipal work was conducted in a number of buildings throughout the city. On a personal level, as curator of Cork Public Museum, our old building was used between 1924 and 1936 as the headquarters for Philip Monaghan. And today we still have lots of furniture from those days still within our collections. But another building that was used was the courthouse as well on Washington Street. So the opening of 1936 would have marked a very significant event in the city that does highlight, in the year that's in it, how long it did take the city to finally get over the burning of Cork. And City Hall was the last building that was built from the compensation that they would have received from the British government at the time.
And just to add, that long delay, when this building was burnt, the original building was burnt down in the 1920s, it was 36 before we got to here. And as has just been said, an awful lot of the work was done up in the courthouse, where the council met on a weekly basis. And in relation to the key there, Mr. de Valera's youngest son gave me that key in 1996.
That completes the tour of the Lord Mayor's chamber. We're now going to move to the next room, which is the reception area. And there's a lot of interesting artefacts there, particularly photographic.